Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rakah Kodash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who rule and teach well. In peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Isaiah 55 verse 11. So shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please, and it shall prosper in the thing whereto I sent it. So point blank period. Anything prophesied to happen in the scriptures, if it hasn't taken place already, will come to pass, and no intervention of any kind, no peace treaties, peace talks, economic forums, wars, etc., will keep biblical prophecy from coming to its fulfillment. The only thing it can do is help further biblical prophecy from coming to its fulfillment, because the Most High is in control of everything, and this is his movie, no one else's. And I wanted to start the video off with this precept to preface a video on RT America's YouTube channel titled, No Time Set for Troop Withdrawal After U.S. and Iraq Talks. And though you may see a slight reduction in troop levels or troops getting moved around here or there, the United States military will not completely leave the Middle East, because it's biblical prophecy for the United States to be there, along with other heathen nations, to take part in the upcoming battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. This is Joel chapter 2 verse 20. But I will remove far off from you the Northern Army, the North American Army, the United States military, all branches, the Navy, the Marines, the Army, the Air Force, etc., and will drive him into a land barren and desolate, the Middle East, more specifically Saudi Arabia, which is going to be the main staging ground for this upcoming battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, with his face toward the East Sea. And when we go to a map of the Middle East, what do we see? You've got Saudi Arabia right here, that land barren and desolate, and with his face toward the East Sea, what do you have? To the northeast, Iraq, which has a U.S. military presence there, and then you've got the Euphrates and Tigris River, and to the straight east, you have the Persian Gulf, and above the Persian Gulf, what do you have? Iran, the main target of the United States of America and the state of Israel in the Middle Eastern region. And his hinder part toward the utmost sea, his hinder part being behind him, the Red Sea. And I did a video a while back on how both the U.S. and Russia are courting relations with Sudan. And in that video, I was profiling a clip from RT talking about how the U.S. and Russia see having a presence in Sudan would make it more easy for them to pivot militarily to the Middle East to help their allies. And his stink shall come up, and his ill savor shall come up, because he hath done great things. And hey, the United States military personnel that will find themselves in the Valley of Jehoshaphat during the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat better start coming to terms with the fact that that's going to be your final resting place, because this battle that's about to take place is going to be vicious, violent, and deadly. This is Joel chapter 3. I'm going to start at verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, which is exactly what the true men of the Lord, the prophets of the Most High, chiefly through GMS or Great Millstone, are doing by going out onto the highways and byways preaching this word, as well as putting up video epistles like this. Prepare war. Prepare for the battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Prepare for the war of Armageddon. Prepare for World War III, war with Iran, nuclear war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Hey, the military personnel of all these different heathen nations, the United States military, the Russian military, the Chinese military, the Iraqi military, Iranian military, Israeli military, Saudi Arabian military, British military, these other NATO nations' military, Turkey's military, Australia's military, etc. Verse 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen. You Edomites are so-called white people, Moabites are so-called Chinese, Ishmaelites are so-called Arab people, Hamites are so-called Africans, Ammonites are the so-called Japanese, Elamites are the so-called East Indians, etc., etc., and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Yahweh, and those mighty ones are the death angels of the Most High, holding back this destruction, waiting to get the go-ahead to release it, which is going to take place after the Mark of the Beast, which is the RFID/NFC microchip implant is mandatorily implemented. Let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And Jehoshaphat in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat, which means Yahweh's judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. And when you go up to the first couple of verses in this chapter, you'll see why the Most High is judging you heathen nations, because you've afflicted the apple of his eye, the true children of Israel, who are the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And at the top of that list are you Edomites. Verse 13, put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full. The fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. And best believe this day is much nearer than you think. Let's get back to that video. Again, no time set for troop withdrawal after U.S. and Iraq talks. Behold, I will remove far off from you the northern army to a land barren and desolate. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision.
The U.S. and Iraq have agreed to an eventual withdrawal of all American combat forces from Iraqi soil. However, a firm date has not been announced. The latest talks between both countries are the first under the Biden administration, and while the move appears to be a positive one, others argue the message just isn't clear. RT's Alex Mihailovich has the story.
With the COVID-19 pandemic continuing to rage globally, a third round of talks between the U.S. and Iraq has to be virtual. But nonetheless, important strides have been made.
The American side pledged to withdraw a significant number of its forces from Iraq today, according to the agreement, and to change the mission of the U.S. troops from combat troops to advisory and training forces.
This means that the estimated 3,500 U.S. combat troops remaining in Iraq will not only change their role from fighting to training, but that the U.S. military presence will shrink over time, working towards a complete withdrawal from the country.
The two sides agreed that there will be no American military bases in Iraq, and therefore there will be no foreign bases in Iraq.
For Iraq, much of the reason the country has tolerated U.S. combat troops for so long is that Americans have been helpful in the fight against ISIS. Now, however, the Iraqi military seems to have control of the situation on its own.
Slakia, damn ad.
Just a couple of weeks ago, Iraqi Special Operations Forces carried out a large-scale operation against ISIS in the Kadashok mountain chain, delivering a major blow to the terrorist group.
During the op, 181 airstrikes were conducted, tens of shelters were destroyed, and tens of terrorists were killed and others were captured.
Aside from its assistance with ISIS, the U.S. military presence has been a thorn in the Iraq government's side. Part of the reason for Iraqi officials wanting to hold the latest round of talks with Washington has been to appease important Shiite political factions and militias with ties to Iran, who are in Iraq and want to see the U.S. out. The pressure from those groups spiked after the Trump administration ordered an airstrike that killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad last year. Shortly after the incident, Iraqi politicians passed a resolution to get U.S. troops out of the country, but that never happened. Many believe under President Joe Biden, that may change. Biden is said to support the idea of getting American troops out of the area in hopes of winding down what some have called endless wars, while improving America's relationship with Iran. For RT, I'm Alex Mihailovich.
And for more on the U.S. and allied presence in Iraq, we'll talk to former UK MP George Galloway. So, George, 3 rounds of talks, and the conclusion is no timetable for withdrawal. What do you make of all of that?
As Bill Clinton might put it, it depends what you mean by eventual. After all, Donald Trump was trying to withdraw forces from Iraq, and the Democrats in Congress blocked him from doing so. So this is welcome news, but it's only news. It's only words, it's only paper. In fact, they were virtual, so it's not even worth the paper it wasn't written on. But if it happens, of course, it's a sensible move for the mothers of the American service personnel that are there and are in real danger. Another base attacked last night. The endless war has gone on long enough. But the suspicion is in Iraq and in Iran and in Syria that the US are in Iraq not because they want to fight ISIS and Al-Qaeda in.
And ISIS was nothing more than a proxy mercenary force used by the United States military and the state of Israel to destabilize and balkanize the Middle Eastern region, to allow the state of Israel to be the main hegemon in the region with no power strong enough to stand up to him.
In Iraq, because they're effectively assisting and defending them in next door Syria, but because they want to be placed well pivotally to launch strikes against Iran, launch strikes against Syria.
Now,
Back in Isaiah 55 verse 11, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please. Joel 2 verse 20, but I will remove far off from you the northern army, the North American army, the United States military, to a land barren and desolate.
on to the Syria, the Damascus airstrikes. I want to circle back to that one. But sticking here in Iraq, the January 2020 airstrike that killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani gravely deteriorated relations in Iraq. It led to Shiite lawmakers in the country to pass a non-binding resolution to end U.S. troop presence in the country. Now, we know this is just a referendum action. What will it take for the U.S. to finally leave Iraq? And will that be contingent on allies like the U.K. to withdraw as well?
Well, absolutely, yes, in the last point that you made. But on the first point, it's important that the viewers know that this was not just a general. Qasem Soleimani was effectively the second man in the state. So whoever the second man in your state is, imagine if Iraq or Iran had assassinated that person. It was an egregious and grievous act of destructive violence which risked all-out war between Iran and the United States. So if we are stepping back from the brink of that kind of cataclysm, then that's obviously very good news. What would it take, Manila? Well, it would take a decision by the Biden administration that they were withdrawing effectively from interfering in Iran and in Syria. Because as long as they're interfering in both of those countries, they need a presence in Iraq. They need soil on which to operate from. They need airstrips from which to launch. And the best thing would be for the United States to conclude that this whole region doesn't need any more American forces any longer.
Now, George.
That's it with that video. You get the point. But one more time, so shall my word be that goeth forth out of my mouth. It shall not return unto me void, but it shall accomplish that which I please. Joel 2 verse 20, but I will remove far off from you the northern army, and will drive him into a land barren and desolate. The United States military is there to stay in the Middle Eastern region, and you better come to terms with the fact that they're not going to leave, but them, along with these other heathen nations as military, are going to go to war in that Middle Eastern region during this upcoming battle in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, the War of Armageddon. So that's it with this video, and with this video, I hope you sincere Akim were edified. Just keep strong and keep pushing this word. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharala, and until next time, Shalom.